Once upon a time, there was a mighty king who ruled a vast kingdom. His castle stood atop a hill, overlooking the land and sea. Although he was rich and powerful, the king was not satisfied. One day, while walking along the beach, he saw a golden fish struggling in a net. "Save me," the fish pleaded, "and I will grant you a wish." Intrigued, the king freed the fish and said, "I wish to understand true happiness." The fish smiled and replied, "Follow me into the sea, and you will find your answer."
The king hesitated, but decided to trust the fish. He stepped into a small boat, and the fish guided him into the deep blue ocean. As they traveled, the king saw beautiful coral reefs, schools of shimmering fish, and waves that danced under the sun. "What does this beauty mean?" he asked. "These are lessons of balance and harmony," the fish explained. "Happiness is found not in taking, but in appreciating what surrounds you." The king began to realize the wisdom in the fish's words.
Suddenly, the fish led the king to an island hidden by mist. The land was lush with tall trees, colorful flowers, and birds singing melodies. "Here you will meet those who hold the key to your happiness," said the fish. As the king walked into the forest, he encountered a farmer planting seeds. "Why do you work so hard?" the king asked. The farmer replied, "My joy comes from seeing the fruits of my labor and sharing them with my family." The king felt a flicker of understanding.
The king continued his journey and met a musician playing a harp by a stream. "Why do you play music?" the king asked. The musician smiled and said, "Music brings people together and allows them to feel joy, sorrow, and hope. It connects us in ways words cannot." The king listened to the melodies and felt a deep peace wash over him. He realized happiness might be tied to creation and connection. The fish nodded approvingly, swimming nearby as the king pondered.
Next, the king met an old woman weaving baskets by a fire. Her hands were steady and her eyes glowed with contentment. "Why do you weave these baskets?" the king inquired. The woman replied, "Each basket tells a story and serves a purpose. I find joy in creating something useful for others." The king began to understand that happiness might lie in contributing to the well-being of others. The fish led him further, deeper into the island's heart, where more lessons awaited.
The king reached a clearing where children played with laughter and energy. "What makes you happy?" the king asked them. One child replied, "We're happy because we have each other and the freedom to explore." Their laughter was infectious, and the king felt lighter than he had in years. He thought about his own childhood and how far he had drifted from simple joys. "Perhaps happiness isn't complicated," he mused aloud, and the fish seemed to smile knowingly.
As the journey continued, the king entered a small village. He saw people sharing food, helping each other build homes, and celebrating festivals together. "Why do you work together like this?" the king asked a villager. The man answered, "Happiness grows when shared. No one can thrive alone. We need each other." The king felt a warmth in his heart as he saw their smiles. He realized that his own palace, though grand, lacked this sense of community.
The fish led the king back to the shore, where the sunset painted the sky with brilliant colors. "Have you found your answer, king?" the fish asked. The king looked out at the horizon and said, "I think I'm beginning to understand. Happiness is not in power or wealth, but in connection, creation, and gratitude." The fish nodded and said, "There's one final lesson you must learn. Follow me once more." With curiosity and humility, the king followed the golden fish.
The king found himself in an underwater cavern, its walls glowing with soft light. At the center was a golden chest. "This," said the fish, "is your reward for opening your heart to wisdom. Inside, you'll find the tools to bring happiness to your people." The king opened the chest and found a simple scroll. It read, "Share your wealth, protect your land, and listen to your people. Happiness will follow." The king smiled, realizing that the answers had always been within his reach.
When the king returned to his kingdom, he called his advisors and announced a new plan. "We will build schools and hospitals. We will ensure no one goes hungry or homeless," he declared. His people cheered, and the king felt a joy he had never known before. The golden fish's lessons stayed with him, guiding his decisions. Over time, his kingdom became prosperous and united, not because of its riches, but because of the happiness shared among its people.
The king became known as the wise ruler, and his kingdom flourished. He often visited the farmers, musicians, and children who had taught him so much. He even shared stories of the golden fish with his court, reminding them of the importance of balance, kindness, and humility. Every action he took was guided by the simple truths he had learned on his journey. His people adored him, and his legacy grew with each act of compassion and generosity he displayed.
In time, the golden fish's lessons transformed not just the king, but the entire kingdom. The markets bustled with activity, filled with laughter and harmony. The schools taught children about empathy and responsibility, while the elders shared their wisdom. The king watched proudly, knowing his choices had set this change in motion. He realized that his happiness now came from seeing others thrive. The golden fish had indeed given him the greatest treasure of all, true understanding and peace.
One day, as the king walked by the ocean, he thought about the golden fish. "I wonder if it still swims in these waters," he mused. Suddenly, the waves shimmered, and the golden fish appeared. "You have done well, king," it said. "Your kingdom is a beacon of hope for others. Remember, the lessons of happiness are endless. Continue to learn and teach them to others." The fish swam away, leaving the king with a renewed sense of purpose.
The king built a monument by the sea to honor the golden fish. It depicted the fish swimming freely, surrounded by coral and waves. People from far and wide visited the monument, hearing tales of the king's transformation. They left inspired to bring the lessons of the golden fish to their own lives. The monument became a symbol of growth, wisdom, and the power of selfless leadership. The king's story spread across lands, creating ripples of positive change.
As years passed, the king grew older, but his spirit remained youthful. He often sat in his garden, surrounded by flowers and birds, reflecting on his journey. "Life is a circle," he would say. "What we give to others returns to us in ways we can't imagine." The golden fish's wisdom had not only shaped his reign, but had also become his personal philosophy. Even in quiet moments, he felt connected to the lessons of harmony and gratitude.
The king's advisors asked him about his most treasured memory. "It was the moment I freed the golden fish," he said. "That simple act of kindness changed my life. It taught me that even the smallest gestures can lead to the greatest rewards." His words resonated deeply with everyone who heard them. They began to view their own actions differently, realizing that every choice held the power to create happiness or sorrow. The king's wisdom was a gift that kept giving.
One day, a young prince from a neighboring kingdom visited the wise king. "I've heard your story," the prince said. "I want to learn how to be a leader like you." The king welcomed him warmly and shared the lessons of the golden fish. He even took the prince to the ocean, hoping the waves might inspire him as they once did for the king. The prince returned home determined to lead with kindness and wisdom, carrying the legacy forward.
The king's kingdom became renowned for its values of generosity, compassion, and fairness. Travelers brought stories of the wise ruler back to their lands, spreading his teachings far and wide. "Happiness is not a destination," the king often said. "It's a journey that begins with understanding and ends with love." His words inspired rulers, merchants, and villagers alike. Even those who had never met the king felt touched by his story, which carried the essence of the golden fish.
As the king approached the end of his days, he called his family and advisors to his side. "Promise me you will carry on the lessons I've learned," he said. "Remember, happiness isn't something you can own. It's something you share." They promised, vowing to honor his legacy. The king smiled, knowing his people were in good hands. He looked out at the sea one last time, feeling at peace. The golden fish's wisdom would live on through his kingdom.
When the king passed away, his people mourned deeply, but celebrated his life with gratitude. They built a second monument beside the first, honoring both the king and the golden fish. Its inscription read, Here lies the ruler who discovered true happiness in kindness, wisdom, and love. Over time, the monuments became a pilgrimage site, drawing those seeking guidance and inspiration. The golden fish's lessons, once shared with a single king, became a beacon for the world.